What? Good morning. Welcome to Crosswalk. Isn't this beautiful out here? We've had weird weather this year, but also want to celebrate with you. So, welcome to Crosswalk. If this is your first time visiting, I want to encourage you to stop at our welcome table back there and get a gift for you that will give you a little more information about our church. So, I want to encourage you to stop by and get that. And also want to remind you inside your bulletin is all the current offerings that we have available. But I do want to let you know on the back it talks about Zumba. They're taking a little bit of a break. They will resume on the 18th of October. Becky Joe's daughter is getting married in Texas. So for some reason, she decided to go to Texas instead of teaching Zumba. So great, exciting things. And then I believe she's going to Hawaii after that. So, we can't really blame her. It's beautiful weather. So she's going to be away for a bit, but she will resume on the 18th. So again, I just want to draw your attention to this only because my husband has been working his hiney off to get this up. This is a brand new screen that you can see from any angle in our courtyard. We had one person gave a substantial donation, so I know you can't see it from back there, but this is a whole bunch of little square screens put together up here so that we can worship out here and have such a great time together. So, Pastor Pete wants to start doing some football games out here. So, the great opportunity to use it. So, I just want to thank you for being part of Crosswalk and supporting Crosswalk in whichever way you support Crosswalk, whether it's just showing up and being here and being present, whether you're praying for Crosswalk on a regular basis, which we all know we all need that, and then also supporting us financially. If you're doing any of those, thank you for your support here at Crosswalk. We have such a busy campus. People show up here, even PG&E comes in, and they thought, like most churches, they wouldn't have any problem with our campus, but we have all these cars coming in all the time that are getting in their way. I'm like, so sorry, but we are not a church that does not get used. So they are finishing up. We met with them this week. They're finishing up. They will be out of here in a month. But right now, they're going to be doing some work on our campus for things that we wanted, moving some of the Conex boxes and cleaning up the area where they've been doing all the work. So excited to know that they're starting to wrap up on that. And if you weren't aware of what they were doing, they were running a big gas pipe from our side across under the creek and up on the other side to continue going. The gentleman came in and he said those pipes are older than him, and he was not a young guy. So it's a good thing that they're replacing all these. So, again, are you ready now to have a great worship service and hear a great message? I am warning you, this message is going to test you.
That's a first. All right. I think that's me making all that noise. All right. So, welcome everybody. Oh, thank you. That was really robust. Good morning. Thank you. That's better. I want to welcome some singers up with us today. Y'all know Ann, but we also have Joan Quinlan with us today. So I'm so excited that she's with us. Now we're going to sing just a few songs. These are classic hymns that have a new twist with them. And the first one we're going to do is probably the most familiar hymn that's out there. It's one of the most beloved hymns out there. And so we're completely wrecking the lyrics to ruin it for you today. But actually, for good purpose. The lyricist for this, and there's just a few modifications, is Michael Gungor. On his latest album, he has made his edits on Amazing Grace to reflect a more spacious, loving, original blessing kind of Christianity, and not quite as dark as some of the verses. And there are some refreshing phrases in here, but there are also some very provocative phrases in here. There's a little bit of gender inclusion in terms of the character and nature of God toward the end. We are very, very comfortable with masculine imagery of God. But what if God is not that gender specific? What if God could be equally understood as a mothering hen, right? As Jesus himself talked about. I'm getting a lot of ring up here. You guys catching that? All right. So anyway, you're going to see a reference that way, which hopefully will be a little bit provocative. I encourage you actually to stand with us for these songs. You got 3 in a row. Classic hymns, this first one, Amazing Grace. And I might be out of range, so Gordon, hit the space bar. There we go.
and grace, how sweet the sound of love that sets us free. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see. Twas grace that wet my heart in fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious does the faith appear that frees us from belief. Though my flesh and heart shall fail, and mortal life shall cease, I now behold within the veil a life of joy and peace. Though we've been here 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun.
All right. This next one's one of our favorites around here, called "Be Thou My Vision." And Gordon, if you could hit the space bar once again, and one more time. All right.
Be thou my vision, O Lord of my heart. Not be all else to me, save that thou art. Thou my best thought by day or by night. Waking or sleeping, thy presence my light. Be thou my wisdom, and thou my true word. I ever with thee, and thou with me, Lord. Thou my great Father, I thy true Son. Thou in me dwelling, and I my King of heaven, my victory won. May I reach heaven's joys, the bright heaven's sun. Part of thy own heart and never be flawed. Still be my vision, O ruler of all.
Lovely. Good job. We have one final one for you called Take My Life and Let It Be. Ann and I presented this or shared this with you. It's one of my favorite hymns, actually. We did this a couple months ago, and some of you liked it, so we're going to do it again. Enjoy it. I love what this verse is all about. Everything we have is up to God to use. Let's do it.
Take my life and let it be consecrated, Lord, to Thee. Take my moments and my days, let them flow in ceaseless praise. Let them flow in ceaseless praise. Take my hands and let them move at the impulse of thy love. Take my feet and let them be swift and beautiful for Thee. Swift and beautiful for Thee. Take my voice and let me sing, always only for my King. Take my lips and let them be filled with messages from Thee. Filled with messages from Thee. Take my will and make it thine. It shall be no longer mine. Take my heart, it is thine own. It shall be thy royal throne. It shall be thy royal throne. Take my love, my Lord, I pour at thy feet its treasures gone. Take myself, and I will be ever only all for Thee. Ever only all for Thee.
Give yourselves a hand. That was great. And have a seat. Doop. There we go. All right. So before we go any further, another shout out to Ted. When you see this up here, this isn't like hanging a TV at your house, right? We used to have a little bracket. We did have a bright TV here, but it wasn't bright enough. And a normal old thing like this, a bracket for that. No. This thing takes steel posts to put in. Each one of these squares is this big. Each one of them has to be attached together. They have to be calibrated together. He has to put all this trim wood up here. I watched him do piece by piece this week. Ted is a beast. So let's give it up one more time for Ted. Really, really great. And again, this was because of one person's generosity beyond the capital campaign. They knew that we like to have our services outdoors, and in order to do that effectively, we needed some tech to help us do that. And of course, Ted is the one that masterminded the sound system so that works, and we're still live streaming all this stuff out here. Isn't it pretty sweet that we've got this kind of access and fun tools to play with? It's really good. All right, so today, hopefully your hearts are warmed up and you're trusting God at a new level, because I'm going to mess with you today, as I so enjoy doing on a week-to-week basis. And today's, we're taking a look at one verse. It's the last step in the Lord's Prayer. We've been walking through, you know what? I don't want to ruin anybody's sight lines. I mean, you're looking at me, that ruins your sight line, but I want to make sure I make room for you to see. This is the last week we're doing on the Lord's Prayer. We've been following the Sermon on the Mount and borrowing ideas and insights from a book called Following the Call all year long. We're going to wrap that up at the end of 2025. Got some cool quotes for you today, a little longer than usual. So here's how the layout's going to go. I want to introduce you to this idea of deliver us from evil, from my experience growing up in a Christian church. And then we're going to hear some insights from an Aramaic scholar who understood the ancient language that Jesus spoke and what it meant, and then his culture, what it meant for them and his day and age, which is different than probably most of us have been accustomed to. And then we're going to hear insights from a Catholic priest who lived his life from the late 1800s to about 1968. He has some brilliant insights on thinking about the subject of evil and what do we do with it, and how do we dance with it, because it is a dance. And then I have an awful Bible story to tell you, but it is a very important one that has a lot to teach us. So that's where we're going today. Before we go any further, though, would you join me in a brief prayer? So take a deep breath, if you would. I just want you to recognize where you are. You are at Crosswalk, in case you got lost on the way, didn't know where you were. You are among friends. You're among people who are here together for the same purpose of growing together, being wooed, called by the love of God to come together in community, called to stretch our minds, our perspectives, learn more about what it means to serve, learn more about what it means to stand for grace and justice in our world. We're here to be community together in a deeper way, because it's so much easier when we can encourage each other. And we're here at this service because we long to connect with the divine, our source, and commune with this presence, this being we call God. And so, God, you've already welcomed us here. Now we welcome you here into our hearts, into our lives. As much as we are able, we give you freedom to speak into our lives and our very being. In so doing, we inherently trust you, that you are a God of love who seeks well-being for all, including ours, that to encourage us toward health and well-being, you're not afraid to nudge us, give us insight with maybe a difficult truth, and maybe we don't want to see, but that's a part of love, and you are willing to do it. So we thank you, God, that we can trust you, that we can trust your nature to be loving and kind, that your essence is shalom, your end goal is shalom, and your means from beginning to end is always, always shalom. May your shalom permeate this space here together. Ask this in the name of Jesus. Amen. So I grew up in a Christian church. I was a pastor's kid, so you bet I grew up in church. And I learned this prayer, the Lord's Prayer, from a very early age, memorized it, mumbled it along with all the other people in the churches that I belonged to. And when it came to this line, which follows, lead us not in temptation, deliver us from evil, the deliver us from evil for me was always like, God, come rescue us from the mess that we're in. That was sort of the intimation, is there's evil in the world. God, you deal with it. Be the superhero right now and handle it. After 9/11, there was a well-known evangelical pastor and writer who I deeply admire. He's a brilliant writer and helped so many literal millions of people grow in their faith. And he wrote a prayer to kind of express what he was feeling and what he believed that a lot of Americans were feeling and a lot of Christians were feeling. And the title of the prayer poem was Do It Again, Lord. Do it again, Lord. And the gist of the poem, prayer, was like you did in the Exodus event of old, do it again. Which means, God, we've got these evil people that are oppressing us right now, and we need you to come in and pull off a magic show like we've only seen in the times of the Exodus. We need you to overpower the one who has just hurt us and wounded us. That was the tone of it. Lord, do it again. Come in your power, come in your justice, and wipe out the people who just caused us so much pain and suffering. And frankly, at that time in my life, just as a human being who lived through the horror of watching all that coverage, and I'm sure you're the same way, there was a part of that prayer I just so agreed with. I was like, yeah, I'm pissed. I can't believe what happened here as Americans, and we're frustrated. We want to see justice served, you know? But at the same time, there was another part of me that was like, I'm not sure that's exactly the right prayer. Because there's a part of that prayer that is sort of like the prayer that the people who were behind the attack in the first place were praying. As we're praying, God, get rid of the evildoers, somebody else somewhere across the world for a long time was saying those same prayers about us. God, help us get rid of these evildoers. And so that cannot be the way we think about this entirely. In no way saying that 9/11 was appropriate or justified. Don't hear that. But maybe there's a different way to think about deliver us from evil than just simply calling out to God and saying, God, you deal with this. This is your problem. It's too big for us. And so that's why we need to take a look at the original language that Jesus used. Just to remind you, the Bible was not written in contemporary American English. It was written in Greek centuries and centuries ago, and Greek does not translate well into English. That's why you have so many interpretations of the Bible, hundreds of interpretations of the Bible to choose from, because of all those different choices to be made. But Jesus, while he may have been familiar with some Greek, he didn't speak Greek like his daily language. He spoke Aramaic. And Aramaic does not play nicely with Greek. So you have lots of translation issues, not just for word, but meaning for meaning. Furthermore, the Aramaic language comes from an Eastern culture. Greek, the Greek culture is a Western culture. We see the world differently. And so that Eastern culture comes into play when we think about anything that Jesus says, which for most of us, because we live in the Western world, is somewhat foreign to us. And so you may hear some new ways of thinking about this prayer and this particular line today that you'd never thought of before, because why would you? We live in the Western world, where the God's up there to come down and save the day down here. But we see an entirely different take here. So I apologize ahead of time. There's lots of quotes to get through today, but there's juicy stuff that I didn't want you to miss. I am going to invite you to say Neil Douglas Klotz's poem prayer rendition of this one line in just a moment. But hear what he has to say here in this next line. Hopefully I'm in range now. Okay, I'm not. Give me a space bar, somebody. Very good. Give it to me again. And you're in charge of following along, Dar. All right. So here we go. Neil Douglas Klotz, he's an Aramaic scholar. The Aramaic word bishna does refer to evil, but in the Hebraic and Aramaic sense of unripeness or inappropriate action. The roots point toward a sense of what delays or diverts us from advancing, as well as a sense of inner shame for not producing good fruit, the right action at the right time. Next slide. Patson could be translated loosen the hold of, give liberty from, or break the seal that binds us to. Do not let us be deluded by the surface of life, but neither let us become so inward and self-absorbed that we cannot act simply and humanly at the right time. The prayer reminds us that sometimes our ideals, including those of holiness, peace, and unity, carry us into the future or the past and make it difficult to be in the present where help is needed now. I want to read that sentence again. The prayer reminds us that sometimes our ideals, including those of holiness, peace, and unity, carry us into the future or the past and make it difficult to be in the present where help is needed now. What does he mean by that? Well, we're guilty of it. I'll say that. When we think about the past, we think about the good old days. That one person once said, "It ain't as good as it used to be," and it never was. We fantasize about the good old days being better than they were now, but that just means we haven't paid any attention to history. But we glamorize it. We pretend that it was better and that we're at a worse time now. And so that's part of what he means, being stuck in a past that's now gone. It doesn't exist anymore. And sometimes, especially in a more classic Christian tradition, we're so hyper-focused on what's going to come. We're so focused on heaven, the future, when it's all going to be okay. And it will be. But we're so focused on then that we forget about our life now. Sometimes we get so callous about now because we're so focused on what's to come that we don't give a whole lot of rip about today. I remember many years ago, I was talking about how as people of God, as caretakers of stewards of creation, that we need to be better stewards of the environment because it is ours to be in charge of. We're the beings with the most power on the planet to make changes and all that stuff. And I remember a visitor said to one of our folks who they knew from previous life, said, "Well, it doesn't really matter what we do with the environment because it's all going to burn to hell anyway when the end time comes." That was sort of the idea. Why do we care? We're just going to make the most of the ride and then have our time in heaven with the sweet by and by with our massive family reunion where we all have a golf course and beachfront property and a Tahoe right in the background. I mean, that's sort of the idea, focused on the future. And what is he saying? Neil Douglas Klotz, he's saying, no, the point of this is to be in touch with reality, in touch with right now. What are we called to do and be? So in light of that, I want you to join me in saying his prayer out loud. So we'll do this next together. It's just a few slides. It's called remembrance. Let's do it. Say it with me. Don't let surface things, oops, is it not working? Should just be the space bar, unless it's frozen. Hey, all right. Join me. Don't let surface things delude us, but free us from what holds us back from our true purpose. Don't let us enter forgetfulness, the temptation of false appearances, to the fraud of inner vacillation, like a flag tossed in the wind, alert us. But break the hold of unripeness, the inner stagnation that fruit prevents good fruit. You know what I mean. From the evil of injustice, the green fruit and the rotten, grant us liberty. Deceived neither by the outer nor the inner, free us to walk your path with joy. Keep us from hoarding false wealth and from the inner shame of help not given in time. Don't let surface things delude us, but free us from what holds us back. So, Catholic priest and academic and writer Romano Guardini, he has a very long quote, and I'm sorry for giving you a very long quote, but he has so much to say, I don't want you to miss it. An evil that is oppressing me now does not come out of the blue. It comes from words that were spoken before, from ineptitude, negligence, and evil deeds of the past. The wickedness of the heart takes tangible shape in the world. It becomes distilled into evil and emerges to confront someone somewhere else in the form of scandal, hindrance, or an oppressive atmosphere. The evil I have to contend with is a distillation from past evil that comes from others or myself. This evil then enkindles further evil, which bears new seed of evil. One arises continually out of the other, and so the evil chain is unending. As with our personal history, so it is with history in the large sense. Wars are not started by the force of nature, but by the selfishness everywhere, by hardness that thought only of its own advantage, by indifference to the fate of others, by greed for power, by vainglory, by inordinate ambition, by greed for possessions, by the mysterious urge to oppress others, to torture, to destroy. When the last war started, its force had been accumulated from the wickedness of millions of hearts, from the evil and the depths of the human race. He's referring to World War II. The suffering that oppresses humankind everywhere confronts the individuals as universal evil. It does not originate. Here we go. Next slide. We catch up on this. I didn't edit this very well. The suffering that oppresses humankind everywhere confronts the individual as a universal evil. It does not originate from the earth or from the necessities of nature, but from humanity. When we ask ourselves whether the earth has room and bread for all, there can be only one answer. That answer is yes. There's plenty of room and plenty of bread for all. Nevertheless, many have neither room nor bread, because the real evil does not stem from nature, but from the coldness and hardness of selfishness, the negligence of the indolent, thoughtlessness of the superficial, and pleasure loving. Therefore, the petition, deliver us from evil, means grant that the rightful chain reaction may be broken by which evil continually arises out of wickedness and, in turn, engenders new evil. How can we break the chain? His final part of the quote. But universal evil can be broken only in each heart that gives itself to God and undertakes to care that love's will be done. True, a tangled skein of evil exists, but to be entangled in it is not blind fate. Redemption has come to all and can be realized in each one. The freedom of the children of God can be awakened in us from God, and the power of the redemption emanating from liberated hearts can penetrate the chain of universal evil. If you fell asleep in the first couple slides of that, basically what he's saying is our problems don't just arise out of nowhere, but they are built on decisions made from the past. The problems that we see today in our country and the division that we have didn't arise just in the last year or in the last 8 years, but in the last 400 years of seeds of evil growing into fruition and good people not doing the right thing at the right time. Listening to Neil Douglas Klotz's idea of unripeness. People did the right thing at the right time, the ripe time. And then to recognize that we have a part to play in this unfolding of history. Will we, in our negligence, sow seeds of next year's evil, or will we listen to the voice of love and shalom, do the ripe thing, that is shalomi, that will break the chain of evil? There's a story that exemplifies this phenomenon really well. And it comes out of the Old Testament, the Older Testament, out of 2 Samuel, starting in, really, the context starts in chapter 13 and goes to 18. All this, by the way, including later on, I will put Gunger's modified lyrics to Amazing Grace on my blog, which I'll publish at 11 o'clock. The poems, all these quotes, you can go back and look at on our website, so you can find that stuff. But this is a story. I think I've only talked remotely about it and not fully about it twice in my 25 years here. One time I told most of the story. Well, another time on Father's Day, I may have shared a little bit about the story. And the reason why is because it's rated R, and it's extremely violent and painful and could be triggering. So if it is, I apologize for that. The story starts with King David, the a man after God's own heart, as he is called, and yet we know he is a deeply flawed, very real human being. His oldest son, Amnon, and by the way, he may have been a man after God's own heart, but he lived around 1000 before the Common Era, right? 1000 BC. And at that time, it was appropriate and encouraged for men of wealth and royalty, especially, not to have just one wife, but many, many wives. And David had many, many wives. And he had many, many children. And those children had step brothers and sisters. And so you have his oldest son. His name was Amnon. And Amnon had a crush on Tamar. Unfortunately, Tamar was his stepsister. She apparently was beautiful, and he could not get his mind off Tamar, and it drove him crazy. He wanted her, and he wanted to figure out a way to have her. And a friend of his had an idea. Well, why don't you pretend to be sick, really sick? And the king will come and ask you what can be done. And you just simply request to Dad, hey, could you send Tamar in and have her make those delicious heart-shaped cakes that I love so much? It's like chicken soup, man. I mean, I just need some good comfort food. And Tamar makes it like nobody's business. He's like, all right, okay. Didn't know that, but all right. So he sends Tamar in, and she's making her heart-shaped cakes. And then Amnon sends all of the other servants out of his bedchamber. And he makes the pass at Tamar. Says, I can't stop thinking about you, and I will have you. Now, Tamar is a virgin. And in this day and age, that's kind of a kind of a thing. In that day and age, that ruined your property value. It ruined your reputation if you were not a virgin before you were married. In fact, as scholars would say, the way she was dressed indicated to everybody, wherever she would go in the palace of the kingdom, that she was a virgin. And so she pled with Amnon, don't have this thought anymore. This will ruin my life. It will ruin your life. She goes so far as to say, instead of that, why don't you go ask your father if we could marry? Certainly he will be okay with that. Because I don't know what father on the planet wouldn't want their son to marry their sister. Because that makes sense. But she's desperate, right? He doesn't want to wait. So he goes for it. And he overpowers her, and he rapes her. Ruins her. And then a thing happened, which happens even to this day. In a flash, he went from undying love and passion for this woman to utter hatred. She now represented this horrible thing that he had done. And he literally wanted her out of his sight with no thought to her care. So he kicked her out of his room. And she weeps her way back to her older brother's place. But she can't stay with the virgins anymore, her sisters. Absalom wonders, why are you bringing all your stuff here? What's going on? Absalom is her older brother. A stepbrother also of Amnon. Now, Absalom is a stud. He apparently is this incredibly good-looking person, prince of a guy. He hears what happened to Tamar, and he goes nuts. He wants nothing but death for Amnon. Word gets out about what Amnon had done. Absalom is furious. He's got murderous curses in his breath. He makes it known to King David what had happened so that King David would actually do something and bring judgment against his oldest son. And David, in response to what Amnon had done to Tamar, did nothing. Nothing. We don't know why. Lots of reasons. If David actually executes judgment in this situation, it probably meant executing Amnon. He didn't want to kill his own son. He didn't want to excuse it either, so he wanted to avoid the tabloids. He didn't want a scandal. So let's just keep this inside the walls of the kingdom. Don't let anybody know what's happened. Don't say a word. We're not going to talk about this anymore, this terrible thing that happened. He did. Actually, I misspoke. He didn't do nothing. He did a lot, didn't he? He made choices. He made serious choices in his doing nothing. We don't often think about it that way, do we? That our indecision is actually a decision. His cowardice to do nothing was a massive decision to do something terrible. Well, time passes. Amnon eventually loses his life. Absalom had a little something to do with that. Absalom realizes now that he's in trouble, and so he flees for his life. David recommends you should probably leave the country. And so Absalom goes to another land. He's outside of Israel now. He's there for 5 years. 5 years. And you know how many times he got a call from his dad? 0. No attention, no nothing. David never said anything, never did anything, no gestures, no nothing. Just quiet. Eventually, somebody comes to King David and through a parable encourages him to invite Absalom back to the kingdom. So Absalom hears this, is like, Dad wants me back in the kingdom. Got to be a good sign. So he moves back into wherever he was living. And for 2 solid years, heard nothing from his father. Again, nothing is sometimes a significant decision, and David surely made it. Absalom, still not happy with what happened to his sister. Still not feeling like justice was really served. Recognized that the only thing that was going to bring him any happiness was to take down his own father, to dethrone him, to take over the kingdom himself. And he recognized that maybe he had the capacity to do it. And so recognizing that a coup is not something you just do overnight, it takes time, he started to seed new ideas about what life would be under his leadership. And the way he did this was he parked himself right in the city center of Jerusalem. And people would come in and make their way to get a ruling from King David on matters that were significant, you know? And long before they got to King David, Absalom would meet him out in the street. And he was a really gregarious guy. And again, really good looking. And so everybody, was happy to have a conversation with him. And he would say to them, if I were king, I would absolutely side with you. This is a no-brainer. So that if they came back with a different verdict, they're remembering, oh, Absalom, the king's son, he agrees with me. He's making friends everywhere. He's increasing his influence everywhere with as many people as possible. And he finally decides it's time. And so he makes a play for the throne. He overpowers King David in Jerusalem. David, with his military that is right there, that he has around them, they flee out of the city. And they make their way to probably the Mount of Olives, is what the scripture says. I'm not sure if that's quite far enough away, but I guess it's far enough, just a few miles outside of Jerusalem. And they set up camp there. Absalom moves in. He's now the new king. He's feeling pretty good. But he knows that his father is a warrior at heart. And he still has a little bit of life in his bones to do something. He's not going to rest on this thing. So his advisors, he has 2 different people give him advice. One of them was probably the advice he should have taken, and the other is an advice from a plant that was there to win his way in to give him bad advice. And that bad advice was, Absalom, you need to go out. You need to lead the army on the charge to go find your dad and kill him. That way you will be the rightful king and everybody will know it. Absalom listens to this advice, gathers his men, and head toward the Mount of Olives. On the way there, by the way, a report gets back to David that this is happening. And so he gets his primary leaders together and says, all right, let's prepare for this. We've done battle before. We know how to handle this. And they were pretty impressive. But he says to his commanders, he says, I do not want Absalom touched. You bring him here to me and let me handle Absalom. Do not harm Absalom. So Absalom, leading the charge, he makes his way into a thick forest on the Mount of Olives. And there were trees that kind of look like what's in the background here. This is an oak tree. You can see these all over Northern California if you hike long enough. They're the coolest trees. Go up near Rockville Park in the Fairfield area. You can climb on these things. They're kind of these Wizard of Oz kind of spooky trees with the arms going all over the place. I imagine this is the kind of tree that Absalom came up on. He was riding an ox, as we all do, in battle, and he's riding this ox, and he goes under this tree. Now, I forgot one little detail about this guy. If you remember Harlequin romances, Carrie sure does. Well, I don't know. No idea. You remember what was on the cover of a solid Harlequin romance book? A beefy, shirtless guy, right? I mean, looking totally buff. And let me ask, did he have short hair or long hair? Always really long hair. Well, Absalom was famous, this Harlequin romance cover guy, right? For his flowing long locks. And he's riding his ox under some lower branches. And he does the best he can to get under the branches, but the ox is pretty big. He can only do so good. And guess what happens? His hair gets caught on the branch. And the ox keeps moving. And all of a sudden, Absalom is hanging there by his hair. And he can't get off. Well, one of David's leaders and his military come upon this scene. They're like, what have we here? And they remembered what David said, no harm shall come to Absalom. And they ignored it. And they killed him on the spot. That coup is over. This, by the way, was in a time in history where violence was the norm, and I don't condone, violent behavior. It's not very shalomy, but that's what happened in the story. That's not where the story ends. They find a servant girl to go tell David what happened, to give her the news. I wonder why they chose a servant girl to go report. Maybe because David might take it a little easier on a servant girl than a servant boy or a servant man to bring the same news. So the girl knows she's bringing good news and bad news. The good news, there's a big victory. The bad news, they completely disobeyed your orders and your son is dead. So she makes her way. David can see her coming, can tell by her expression that this is going to be good news. And so she comes and she says, my Lord, this is what's happened. The battle happened and we won and it's all going to be okay. We're going to live happily ever after. And he says, okay. But how is my son Absalom? Well, let me tell you more about the battle. So they really put up a good fight, but we had them surrounded here and there. And finally, we were able to end this thing cleanly. Okay. But Absalom, what about my son Absalom? And finally, the servant girl has to break it to him. Well, I'm sorry to tell you, but in the midst of this battle, your son was killed. And Absalom weeps and weeps, tears his clothing, which is a sign of grief. He's so distraught. Interestingly, I came across this animated retelling of this story. I'm guessing it was made for middle school or high school. Because I cannot imagine teaching this story to children. This is one of those that Lynn and the Children's Crossing or Kids Crossing is never going to teach, right? I mean, how do you put lipstick on this pig, right? I mean, there's no way you're going to make this thing sound okay. But somehow, some way, this animation did. And the way the animation spun this at the end was, look at the love that David had for his son Absalom. He was so distraught, even though Absalom was trying to kill him. He loved him so much. Because David was a man after God's own heart, so everything he did must be really sugary sweet. Let's applaud David for loving his son so much. But you know what I hear in this story? I hear a guy who is guilty of unripeness. Turn after turn. Because David, too late, asked the question, Absalom, how is my son Absalom? I wonder how things would have been different if immediately after Amnon had raped Tamar. And David knew about it and knew that Absalom was Tamar's older brother who would look out for her and protect her, now is under his household. I wonder what would have happened if in his curiosity, David would have said, okay, yeah, Amnon, yeah, Tamar, but Absalom, how is my son Absalom doing? I got to talk to him. I got to find out what's happening with all these characters, what's happening in my family. The only way I'm going to keep this thing from getting worse, from sowing new seeds of evil that will grow in the future, is if I do everything I can to heal this thing right now before it gets worse. But you remember the decision David had, don't you? To do nothing. To do nothing. How things could have been different if David, at so many different times, and he had so much opportunity over such a long period of time to say the right thing, to do the right thing at the ripe time. But he didn't. Well, we're talking about ancient Israel, but we could be talking about the United States, couldn't we? About messes that we see right now that could have been diminished, wiped away, if good people would have done the good thing at the ripe time. If we would have handled, if we never would have started our rendition of American slavery, which was novel in the world. Don't ever think it different. Slavery is not slavery. We did something special with it. We changed the rules for our advantage. Do you know this? Do you know that in the rest of the world, slavery, the lineage, because slave masters would have sex with the slave women, and then those children, if they were under the father's tutelage at that point, you know what Americans did? We made the lineage under the woman. You know why they did that? That's so that the slave masters would not have to give freedom to those children if they were registered to the woman instead of the man. It was a way to avoid having to be held accountable to their actions. If only something would have happened centuries ago. If only after the Civil War, which didn't need to happen if things had happened centuries before. But after the Civil War, if only things had been done differently and Reconstruction could have happened where we're actually looking at the big mess and saying, what is the healthiest way forward? If that would have been handled differently, we would not have the same kind of civic crises that we have today. It's easy for us. It's easy for us to point a finger at King David, and frankly, it's easier for us, well, depending on what news you listen to anyway, to point fingers at players in our own American history for the problems that we have. And by the way, there's lots of finger pointing from all sides, isn't there? But I wonder if the right word at the right time, at the ripe time, would have been said, many of those anyway, if conversations would have been had, would things be different on this Sunday, September 21st, where there's a service remembering Charlie Kirk that's probably still going? An assassination. I wonder if that assassination would have happened if somebody would have come alongside the assassin to be long before and done what David should have done with Absalom. I see your hatred, man. This is scaring me a little bit. This isn't who we are. Dad saying to his son, I know we love to hunt, but that's not what we're hunting. What is going on in you? How can we process your rage and your anger? How can we find an appropriate way to handle this? Let's get you some therapy. Let's talk this out. Let's get you to church. Let's do whatever. Let me get you out of here so that you don't harm yourself or others out of loving kindness and care. I wonder if something would have been done differently at the ripe time if that would have been avoided. And then, frankly, because every one of us, I don't know if you know this, but your beliefs that you have, your faith, everything, your cosmology, the way you see the world is not your own. You did not create it by choice when you were 4 years old or when you came out of the world, came out of the womb into the world. You have adopted the beliefs and the constructs of those people who raised you, the nation who has formed you. You differentiate yourself. That's part of maturation and adulthood, to find your own seeing the way through and all that. And we choose our sources and we make up the metaphors that we choose to live our life by. That is your faith. That is your construct. And I wonder if there would have been other voices, other influences in Charlie Kirk's life. People, when they heard him say things that were hateful, when they would hear him spin some conspiracy theories, which he did. I wonder if people would have come alongside him and said, hey, I hear you, but have you considered the Aramaic that Jesus spoke and how that might inform your interpretation of what Jesus was actually saying and meaning? Would there be this rhetoric of hate that we're hearing? Because I'm concerned, because Jesus was all about love and grace and redemption, and I'm hearing some words and some phrases and some statements that seem to be calling for other things that aren't great. Can I introduce you to some scholars? Can we get you some therapy? Can we figure out a way to discern what is true and what is not? I wonder if today would be today, if some David at some point would have done something other than nothing. It's easy for us to pick on King David. It's easy for us to pick on those who were in charge of allowing slavery to start, who allowed Reconstruction to stop, who allowed the civil rights to be, blocked, because those seem so obvious. And it seems easy for us in our lazy boys, our armchairs, to quarterback differently what happened with Charlie Kirk and his assassin. And it's tragic. Assassination in our country of freedom, tragic. We are a land of free speech. Tragic. It's easy for us to point fingers there. But how about you? When was that time you did nothing that was really a something? It may have been a key relationship. In fact, most of the times of any consequence were key relationships, right? Could have been a coworker, could have been a parent, could have been a child, could have been your lover, I don't know. And there was this moment, this thing that happened, and you knew that there was a thing that needed to be said, and you knew what to say, and you knew the time was right, but for myriad reasons, you chose nothing. Let's just let it slide. Let's just sweep it under the rug. Let's let time heal all wounds, because that always works so well. Maybe you just didn't have the courage to do it, because to enter into that might be to provoke another conflict. And that's terrifying, especially if it's in dangerous situations. Maybe you're just too exhausted. You don't have the energy to go back into that conversation, so you don't. And you're just like, God, help me. I don't know what I'm doing here, but I can't do it. I can't do it. There are good reasons. I hear you. When was that time you did nothing when it was really a something? What difference might it have made? And what are you going to do about it now? I got a feeling, if you are a human being, there might be some situations in your horizon right now where there's an opportunity to do nothing or something. And you don't have to do the nothing that is a something. But you can do something that will ensure that less seeds of tomorrow's evil will be planted. Because that's what this guy, Romano Guardini, is saying. The choices we make today to align ourselves with the shalom of God are to say we do not want to plant the seeds of tomorrow's evil. We're going to do the ripe thing. What is the ripe thing for you? It could be that you know exactly what I'm talking about. I don't. What are you going to do? What are you going to do, David? You got your Amnon and your Tamar and your Absalom waiting, wondering, what are you going to do? Do something. Do something other than nothing. What are you going to do, American? What are you going to do? Human being, father, son, mother, daughter, child, friend, lover, in that situation you're in. Some of you might not have anything right now, but there may be stuff from the past that you wish you could go back and do something about. And I have an idea for you. I don't want to say this is an epiphany, so don't treat this as a word from the Lord or anything, but maybe it is. That maybe if the context is appropriate, maybe you can revisit some of those things. Maybe you can go back to that relationship problem, because it's almost always in some form of a relationship where this occurs. And maybe you can go to that person and say, you know what, I should have said this yesterday, or I should have said this last week, or I should have said this last month. I should have said this last year. Oh, I'm sorry, I should have said this a decade ago. And I'm so sorry I didn't. I can't explain why I didn't bring this up, why I didn't revisit this, why I didn't say the things I know I have to say now. Back then, I so wish I did, and I'm so sorry that I didn't, because maybe it would have changed how things have developed. But I'm so sorry for fill in the blank. You know, I think if somebody comes and they're real callous with me and something like that, and there's like, yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry, I tried to ruin your life 10, 15 years, 20 years ago. I don't think I'm going to take that seriously, and I don't think it's going to do anything for me. But if I have somebody who comes to me and they've been changed, it's not too late for healing or shalom. It's not too late for healing to take place. It's not going to solve everything. It's not going to erase all the problems, all the seeds of evil that came to their own fruition at some point. It's not going to make it all better, but it might just bring a little more healing. And so, friends, how is the Spirit moving you in this space to wonder about the ripeness of the situation you're in? To not do something too early, not do something too late, but to do the right thing right now. To encourage more shalom, not less. To limit the seeds of evil that we would otherwise plant. Let's pray together. God, it is sometimes not easy to be a human being. And you know this. And how wonderful it is, God, that in our struggle, your love remains steadfast, and so does your grace and mercy. It is who you are. You still are a God of justice and grace, but you are a God who loves creation and all that you've created, and that includes us. And so as we consider our lives, consider what we've been a part of, what seeds we have sown that have grown into things we wish they hadn't. Situations we're in right now where we are struggling to do the right thing, to know the right thing. We beseech you, deliver us from evil. Not that you would come in and save the day, but that your Spirit would move in us and help us see ourselves. Help us understand ourselves. That we would recognize our own complicity in the problems that we are facing, and that we would also be a part of the remedy that needs to happen, the healing that can come. This is what you long for, God. If we ever want to know what is your will for us in this moment, God, it is always shalom, always love. God, what does love call us to do right now? God, maybe, this just came to me, but God, maybe we've been the recipient. Maybe we're the Absalom that our father never looked after us, never wondered how we were doing, and we have held on to this unforgiveness that has turned into other things. Maybe what you're calling us to do is to recognize the humanity in the Davids in our lives and to say, hey, it doesn't make it all better, that what they did wasn't right or good, but they're human, just like you. Just like you. God, I don't know how you're moving to a person in this room, in this space, in this sanctuary we call our courtyard, but I know you're moving. And I pray that your Spirit will continue to flow. Give us insight that we need. Give us courage that we need. Give us energy that we need. Give us the tone that we need. And help us see the timing that we might do the right thing. I ask this in the name of Jesus, who we follow. Amen. Thank you so much for being here today. Hope you have a good day. Be sure to be praying for the Niners in about 2.5 hours. All right. Thanks a lot. See you next week.